a lot of your waking minutes thinking about what other people are thinking. That's part of who we are. And we all have one of those things. And I just love that. I don't see that as undercutting our humanity. I see it as celebrating and revealing our humanity.
That is a beautiful, beautiful thought. Like that as a species, it's so important for us, for survival, to get a deeper understanding of what someone else is thinking, that we actually have a brain region dedicated to just that.
Absolutely. And also the fact that we all have these things. Like we study the parts of the brain that everyone has. It's part of what we all share. Like we have the same little machines running in our heads, right? And I think that's lovely. It's what it is to be a human being.
Well, Professor Nancy Kanwisher, Professor of Cognitive Neuroscience at MIT, it's been such a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you so much for joining us and helping us kick off this special series on the brain.
My pleasure. It's been really fun.
Okay, so that was episode 1 of Brainwaves, where we talked about how hard it is, or why it's still hard to study the human brain. In the next episode, we're going to take a look at what I mentioned earlier, consciousness, the very thing that makes us human.
It's about feeling, being. It's having an experience of redness or of pain, taste of ice cream, or the sound of children's laughter.
Yes, but we still know so little about it. Like, what is it? And again, I'm going to come back to this question over and over again. How is it that electrical impulses, physical ones, in our brain lead to this infinitely mysterious thing we call human consciousness? That's in the next episode of Brainwaves. Catch you then. I'm Meghna Chakrabarty. This is On Point.
Support for AI coverage in On Point comes from MathWorks, creator of MATLAB and Simulink software for technical computing and model-based design. MathWorks, accelerating the pace of discovery in engineering and science. Learn more at mathworks.com.
On Point is a production of WBUR Boston and is distributed by APM, American Public Media.
Support for On Point comes from the listeners of WBUR Boston and from Made In, makers of cookware found in restaurants around the world, offering a carbon steel griddle for home use, designed for cooking a range of foods from eggs and bacon to burgers and fish. More at madeincookware.com. And Road Scholar, a nonprofit educational travel provider for adults offering programs in more than 100 countries and online. Learn more at roadscholar.org/learning.
Next in our series on the human brain,
The redness of red, the taste of ice cream, the feeling of pain when you stub your toe. Thomas Nagel put it like this. He said, "For a conscious organism, there is something it is like to be that organism."
but how does consciousness actually emerge from the physical structures in the brain? Our special exploration Brainwaves continues on the next On Point.
Next at noon is Florida Matters Live and Local. They welcome your calls and your emails. You can call Florida Matters Live and Local to 813-755-6562 or email the show, floridamatters@wusf.org. Also coming up at 12:04 is your WUSF News. The Broadway pop musical Anne Juliet tells an alternative story of the young woman from one of Shakespeare's most famous tales. You'll hear that story on the WUSF News. From WUSF Susan Giles Wantuck, you are listening to WUSF 89.7 Tampa, winner of the 2025 Edward R. Murrow National Award for Overall Excellence. This is your spot for local.
Caring Collective's Caring in Action Collaboration Celebration supports the mission and impact of 17 nonprofits on the Glasser-Schoenbaum campus of Caring. You can make a difference on March 5th. Information at caring-collective.org.
Taking a driver's license test, you can only take it in English. That's thanks to a new rule that took effect last Friday. The policy change follows a crash involving a driver who, state officials said, failed an English proficiency test. Do you think this new rule will make Florida roads safer? Do you worry about road safety if people can't read road signs? Let us know by calling 813-755-6562 or emailing floridamatters@wusf.org. Also this hour, WUSF's Douglas Soul details how a challenge to Florida's tough new rules about gathering signatures could affect citizen-led constitutional amendments. And musician and producer Don Was, he's played with Lynyrd Skynyrd and produced the Rolling Stones and other legends. He stops by ahead of a performance in Clearwater. All this and your calls and emails after these headlines.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Nora Rahm. The House Oversight Committee attempted to question Ghislaine Maxwell today about her time with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The hearing was virtual since she's serving 20 years in prison for sex trafficking. Committee Chairman James Comer says she wouldn't talk.
As expected, Ghislaine Maxwell took the fifth and refused to answer any questions. This obviously is very disappointing. We had many questions to ask about the crimes she and Epstein committed, as well as questions about potential co-conspirators. We sincerely want to get to the truth to the American people and justice for the survivors. That's what this investigation is about.
Comer says the hearings into Epstein will continue. He says the questioning of former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton will be made public. The Clintons are asking to testify publicly rather than be deposed in private. Congress has 5 days left to agree on a budget for the Department of Homeland Security. NPR's Luke Garrett reports.
The government may be heading toward another partial shutdown. Top Democrats sent their DHS demands to the White House last week, but say they've received no response. Here's House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries.
The ball is in the court right now of the Republicans.
Jeffries and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer are withholding their party's support for DHS funding after its agents shot and killed 2 U.S. citizens. GOP Representative Tony Gonzalez told CBS News the Hispanic vote is at stake for the Republican Party.
If we want to keep that long term, we do have to make a shift, not necessarily in policy, but in communication.
This week, the House and Senate will hold oversight hearings on the 2 DHS killings.
But the state is lagging about a week behind when it comes to reporting these cases to the public. Candice DeMatteis is with the Partnership to Fight Infectious Disease in Washington.
Information is power, and unfortunately, when trusted institutions don't share accurate, timely information, it allows that misinformation to fill the vacuum. And unfortunately, people's health suffers as a result.
She says other states like Texas and South Carolina have done better in communicating about measles cases and what to do. Sarasota County's vaccination rate among school children is near the lowest in the state at under 80%. We've got links to info about measles at WUSF.org. The Broadway show And Juliet is coming to Tampa's Strass Center starting tomorrow. WUSF's Susan Giles-Wontuck brings you the backstory on this pop musical.
There have been many variations of Romeo and Juliet, but this one imagines what would have become of Juliet if she chose to go on after the death of her beloved. Actor C.J. Eldred plays Shakespeare in And Juliet. He says he's not trying to represent the historical bard.
We're definitely putting it more into the eyes of like a pop star who is maybe just a couple years past his young prime where he thinks he might be.
The show is upbeat with songs by Swedish songwriter Max Martin, who has written #1 hits with Taylor Swift, Katy Perry, and this catchy tune with Justin Timberlake you might remember from the movie Trolls.
I got this feeling inside my bones.
Eldred says the target audience is millennials who grew up on this music, but it's a show for everyone. Susan Giles-Wontuck, WUSF 89.7 News.
There are pictures and more about the show at WUSF.org. I'm Craig Kopp, WUSF 89.7 News.
Unsigned artists, enter the 11th annual Tiny Desk contest for the opportunity to play a tiny desk and go on tour with NPR Music. Learn more at npr.org/Tiny Desk Contest.
The Duke Energy Center Mahaffey Theater presents the ultimate Tina Turner tribute. Relive the magic that was Tina Turner, featuring an international band, dancers, and a world-class production. Tuesday, February 17th. More at themahaffey.com.
This is Florida Matters live and local, sponsored by Badawi Law. We're broadcasting from the doctors Lorraine Rubis and Neil Frankel studio at WUSF in Tampa. I'm Matthew Petty. A new mandate for English-only test services at the Florida DMV launched Friday. Florida Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles announced the change after a fatal car accident involving a non-English-speaking Florida resident. Florida is a multicultural, multilingual state, with 46% of residents born outside the United States speaking English, quote, less than very well, end quote. That's according to the Migration Policy Institute. Do you think this new rule will make Florida roads safer? Do you worry about road safety if people can't read road signs? Let us know by calling 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. You can also reach out to us by email. We're at FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can leave a comment there as well. Here to talk more about this new rule is Tori Davis with the Hillsborough County Tax Collector's Office. Tori, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Yes, I appreciate you being here. And also with us, Sam Putterman with PolitiFact. Sam, thanks for being with us as well.
Yes, thanks for having me too.
So, Tori, I want to start with you. Hillsborough County Tax Collector's Office administers driving tests. When did you hear about this rule change?
We actually found out in the afternoon of January 30th, Friday afternoon, with a technical advisory from the state advising that effective February 6th, all driver license exams moving forward could be issued in English.
Okay, so that's not much of a turnaround time. Have you been able to get the word out? Like, have you had to turn people away since Friday?
Yes, so we're very appreciative. You know, we've definitely stories like these are helping us get the word out. So, you know, we did everything we could. Obviously, we're agents of the state, of the Florida Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles, so we must comply with their rules and regulations. So, you know, we communicated with our staff, with our team members, and let them know, you know, as of February 6th, there's nothing we can do, unfortunately. We cannot issue in any language other than English. Now, quite a few folks did hear the news through, you know, we pushed it out on our website, on our social media channels, as I mentioned, with some media partnerships as well. So the word was definitely getting out, and we did see an influx of folks coming in to try to test before the mandate went into effect. But unfortunately, you know, yeah, we are having to turn folks away now that, you know, if they come in to try to test in a language other than English.
Yeah. Okay. So, Sam, if I could pivot to you for a moment. Tell us a little more about the accident that prompted this policy change, if you could.
Yeah, so in August 2025, a tractor trailer driver named Harinder Singh, he attempted to make an illegal U-turn on Florida's Turnpike and ended up killing 3 people in the process. And state officials said, that Singh, who was in the U.S. illegally and he did get his commercial driver's license in California, that he had failed an English proficiency test after the crash, like a roadside test. So that incident, it prompted outcry from some Florida politicians who did say that people who don't read English well should not be allowed to get driver's license. So that leads, there might have been some other crashes around the country, but that one was really the catalyst to lead the Florida Highway Safety Motor Vehicles to announce on January 30th that all Florida driver's licenses, written and oral exams, would be administered, in English only.
And so what languages were tests available in Florida before this rule change?
Yeah, so Florida had different tests available depending on what your language was. When it came to the written Florida's permit exam, I believe there was several different languages, including Spanish, of course. And then in the commercial driver's license exams, it was just English and Spanish that was offered.
Tori, what about translation services? Like, how did that factor into what you were, like, how you were able to administer these tests in the past?
Great question. So we actually we have devices that we implemented in our office several years ago called Pocket Talk, and we can translate in over 80 different languages. So in addition to, we have a very large bilingual workforce as well, and
Sure.
languages, Spanish. We have Haitian Creole. So we can have our team members assist, but then we also have this additional great technology through Pocket Talk where we could easily communicate with customers in, like I said, 80 plus different languages. So for road tests specifically, when we were giving those instructions, we could use the Pocket Talk to communicate those directions in their native language. Whereas now we are no longer able to do that.
And I should say too, we reached out to the state motor vehicle agency officials and haven't gotten a response. But of course, that offer to join us on Florida Matters Live and Local stands. And if you're just joining us, we're talking about Florida's new rule requiring driver exams to be given in English only. If you've got questions about it, maybe some observations of your own, give us a call, 813-755-6562. How much of a threat are non-English speaking drivers to road safety, in your opinion? And maybe there are some other factors which pose a bigger risk on the roads. If you've got some ideas, let us know, 813-755-6562. You can also reach out to us by email, floridamatters@wusf.org. Sam, you investigated whether or not this new rule will make roads safer. I should say. What did you find?
Yeah, so we listened to the state officials that kind of cited the Singh case, saying it would make roadways safer for English proficiency. We particularly found no academic studies, no government reports that particularly say that drivers who test in foreign languages, pose a greater threat. And while driver safety experts told us that, increased driver comprehension is always better, that the effect of Florida's new policy on road safety may not be that large because traffic signs usually prioritize universal symbols rather than words. And they told us that, standard signage used across the country is meant to be easily recognizable for all drivers, and this includes international tourists. And so it's unlikely a language barrier, would make a very, very notable difference. It's really hard to say if it would make one at all. But because of these signs, the deliberate effort, to keep phrases short, ensure letters are large enough to be, to be easily understood. There's a lot of, when words and symbols are often combined, there's something called dual coding, which ensures that, drivers understand the information quickly. So it's not completely straightforward.
Yes, and it strikes me too as a driver, if something happens, like you cut somebody off accidentally, the kind of universal language of frustrated drivers doesn't really need a translator either.
Right.
Now, there are some driving schools in Tampa that teach in Spanish. Jorge Cordoba told WUSF about how his school is contending with the change, saying, quote, "We are currently developing a preparation course based on Florida's new regulations. We will be providing both theoretical and practical training services exclusively in English to support students who do not feel fully prepared for the language requirements of the exam," end quote. Got an email here too. Chrissy Price says, "I drove in Germany using my Florida license. I took some time before the trip to learn about traffic signs. I don't think I created any safety concerns. I prefer that Spanish-speaking drivers be licensed and insured. The state's move could increase our insurance rates by increasing the number of uninsured drivers." Thanks for that email, Chrissy. If you want to weigh in as well, you can do so by emailing floridamatters@wusf.org or calling 813-755-6562. 6562. Sam, I guess this is kind of a bit of a longer term outlook, but is that something kind of in consideration, something that PolitiFact might look into about kind of insurance rates as this plays out?
Yeah, definitely. It is something that we saw as a concern that was raised by some experts. We saw it in different protocols actually for DMVs across the country that, strict policies such as Florida's may discourage people, who aren't proficient in English from getting licenses at all, which obviously, as mentioned, could result in more unlicensed and uninsured drivers on the road. And we looked at that as a safety standpoint. When you have unlicensed people on the road that didn't, have to go through the process of learning a lot of the protocols and traffic signs and rules, that poses a safety threat. The uninsured issue poses a safety threat. And as your listener, wrote in, that the insurance rates could rise from that. So it would be something we would look at, obviously down the road, as you said, but it's certainly possible.
Yes. Tori, how many or what sort of percentage, I guess, of exams roughly were multilingual last year for your office?
Our office, in calendar year 2025, 37% of our road skills tests were issued in a language other than English, and then a little over 40% of the written knowledge tests.
So that's a pretty big chunk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean,
it is. Yep.
I'm wondering, as this rule, with this rule now in effect, how are you looking at continuing to support multilingual residents? Like, what can you do? Because it's the rules are pretty black and white from here on out.
They are. So our main goal is to, educate our community as best as we possibly can. We will continue to use our Pocket Talk devices to communicate with our community in their native language, and assist them, provide them all the information, let them know about this new mandate if they don't already know about it, and direct them on where they can find some resources. The driver license handbook is available on the state's website, that customers can use to study, and as best we can, just to communicate and educate based on this new rule.
Mm-hmm. Sam, Governor Ron DeSantis supports the rule. He called it a, quote, good reform. What kind of response has there been from other lawmakers that you've heard?
Mainly a lot of the, Republicans in legislature, Governor DeSantis, as you said, are in, a big support of this. We saw some Democratic leaders like Nikki Fried talk about this being, a very bad decision. She called it racist. She said that she noted, as you did at the top of the show, about how many people in Florida are multilingual and, talked about it being possibly dangerous. So there does seem to be a little bit of a partisan divide on the entire new rule.
Yeah, we've only got a few seconds left here, but just real quick, another email from one of our listeners. How will this affect Uber drivers, many of whom don't speak English, at least in Sarasota? Is that something else you're looking into, Sam?
That's a really good question. We were talking about that to see how rideshare apps and if Uber would then have to kind of update their status in terms of being able to drive for them. So it is something I think that might start coming up over time, or possibly when driver's licenses have to be renewed, that it might not be really happening retroactively, but we could see some issues of it, coming in the future.
Yeah, so a story to watch for sure. Sam Puterman, government reporter at PolitiFact, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And Tori Davis with the Hillsborough Tax Collector's Office. Thank you so much, Tori. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You too. Well, coming up on Florida Matters Live and Local, a Tallahassee check-in with WSF's Your Florida team. Douglas Soul will join us. That's on Florida Matters Live and Local. Stay with us. More to come.
Listener support powers WUSF. Funding also comes from AMSCOT, a state and federally regulated financial services provider. Proud supporters of NPR. Learn more about their services and their commitment to the communities they serve at amscot.com. WUSF invites you to the 2026 Tampa Bay Collard Green Festival. Enjoy the Collard Green Cook-Off and giveaways, wellness fun, and award-winning chef Lakeisha Harris. Saturday, February 14th, 9 to 4 in St. Pete. tbcgf.org.
Start the new year with clarity. Your $20 monthly gift strengthens fact-based reporting right here in West Central Florida and keeps trusted news accessible to everyone. In a year when our community needs reliable information more than ever, you can help lead the way. Begin your new year as a new member at WUSF.org, and thank you.
Welcome back to Florida Matters Live and Local. I'm Matthew Petty. Now, if you're paying attention to the debate over allowing recreational marijuana in Florida, you know the latest attempt to put the question to voters won't show up on your ballot in November, nor will 21 other proposed constitutional amendments. Florida's legislature tightened up the process for citizen-led amendments. A 2025 law, HB 1205, if you're paying attention, imposed tighter deadlines, higher fees, and stricter regulations for signature gathering. People who break the rules also face tough new penalties. A group wanting to expand Medicaid is suing the state. They go to trial today. WUSF's Douglas Soul from the Your Florida team joins us from Tallahassee. He's been covering that trial. Douglas, tell us more about the case. Who's challenging the state? What do they want?
Yeah, well, first off, hello from outside of the Tallahassee Federal Courthouse. You might hear some engines passing by or some lawyers passing by. There's a lot of lawyers here today.
Sure.
So the Medicaid expansion campaign shut down its campaign goals for the 2026 election ballot because of the new burdensome regulations that you mentioned in the intro.
Mm-hmm.
And they're in this trial saying that those regulations were unconstitutional. And it's not just them, though, who's arguing this. They're joined by the marijuana campaign. There was a constitutional campaign to create a constitutional right for safe water. And there's a lot of more lawyers than I've ever seen in the federal courtroom upstairs.
Mm-hmm.
And it sets the stage for a trial that is expected to go for a week and a half, and huge implications to the petition process and constitutional amendment process are going to be decided as a result.
Yeah, so things have only just gotten started today. What have you heard so far?
Yeah, so we heard from the former organizer of the Medicaid expansion campaign. She described the signature collection process for petitions up until the implementation and enaction of some of the provisions of the new law. And then she described how it changed dramatically after and how it became nearly impossible to collect signatures, or at least enough signatures, under the current guidelines. And this is, of course, a big argument because that same campaign has only just now launched a campaign for the 2028 election ballot, but they still say if the current provisions of the law are in place, it's going to be really hard for them to get the required near 900,000 signatures to make it onto the ballot in 28.
Yeah, and there was lots of signatures thrown out. One figure I read, like 70,000 ballot petition signatures were tossed out. A lot of pushback on that, of course, from the campaign, but clearly you can see the results of that law going into effect. And so plaintiffs saying this is not good enough, we want this overturned.
Yeah, and a little bit, just to be more specific, the ballot signatures that were thrown out, that was for the marijuana campaign.
Sure.
But some of them were thrown out due to provisions of that new law. And we will be hearing from the Smart and Safe Florida attorneys at some point soon in this trial.
Mm-hmm. Douglas, let's just take a look back. Well, actually, no, before we move on, what are we hearing from supporters of the new petition? Because there's, clearly people who think this is a good idea, or the new petition requirements, I should say, supporters of that bill, which is getting contested in court. What are supporters saying?
Well, yeah, I mean, what we're going to be hearing from state attorneys throughout the next week and a half is that the state has a right to regulate the election and petition process, and that the regulations that have been implemented are aimed at making it a more efficient process and one less prone to fraud. You hear a lot of state government leaders who are opposed to a lot of these constitutional amendment campaigns. They'll say that there's widespread fraud, something the campaigns deny.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of, as mentioned, the state simply says, and it's more than simple, we're going to be hearing days worth of arguments, but
Sure.
Their maintenance is that they have a right to pass these regulations that the campaigns say are way too burdensome and make it near impossible to get anything on the ballot.
Yeah. Okay, so let's just pivot a little bit and look back at some of your reporting from last week. Hillsborough County Republican State Representative Danny Alvarez is sponsoring a bill to create a counterintelligence and counterterrorism task force. Let's take a quick listen.
Florida is the third largest state in the union, 14th largest economy, and we kind of wave that flag of freedom everywhere, and we got a lot of enemies coming at us. A lot of people tell me, why don't we depend on the feds? I offer you 9/11.
All right, so Douglas, I mean, this is the domain of the federal government, right? Counterterrorism, counterintelligence. What would a state task force be doing?
So I actually reached out to a Tampa-based FBI office, and they referred comment to the State Department, law enforcement department. But so we don't know exactly how the FBI feels about this. But yes, a lot of those responsibilities typically are under a federal purview. But supporters of this bill say that Florida is increased in population and increased in political importance, and that it needs to be able to handle some of these threats itself. So the bill specifically would require a 10-person leadership team to be created in the next year and a half. And then in about a few more years after that, the actual fully staffed division would be in place. So this is not an immediate thing, but if this bill were to pass, you'd see quite a big team in place within 5 to 6 years.
Yeah, okay, all right. So lots more to kind of pay attention to as that unfolds. Now, one thing you're going to be looking at this week, Douglas, there's a farm bill with a bit of a litigious undertow. Tell us more about House Bill 290. It's the agricultural disparagement bill, I believe.
Yeah, it's so interesting because especially over this weekend, there's been a lot of public discourse about this agricultural bill. I guess that's not too surprising because last year, the last year's ag bill had the fluoride ban in it, and that was a talker as well. But this is it sounds in the weeds, but it does have big implications. There's a provision of this huge ag bill that would essentially make it easier for food producers to sue for food disparagement.
What is food disparagement? What does that mean?
Basically, it's disparaging claims about their products and their processes. The producers say they've been unfairly criticized in the past in the public domain. Free speech advocates, though, are really worried that this could be used to stifle criticism of big industries in Florida that wield enormous political power.
Right.
And this is really unfolding in a public way on social media. I've seen some Republicans over the weekend come out against this. And a lot of, I expect the meeting tomorrow morning where this bill is going to come up again to be very busy and very long.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're going to have to limit the duration of individual public comments because they got to fit everyone in.
Yeah. Now, speaking of vegetation, Douglas, who did you see roaming the halls of the Capitol last week?
So I saw what looked to be a dead broccoli roaming around, but apparently it's the tree mascot for the new College of Florida.
The mighty banyan.
It was really weird, a very intense looking tree. As if you've seen the picture, like very muscular, very. I wouldn't want to spill a drink on that tree's shoes, or
a buff
I don't
tree.
know if trees do have, or roots for that matter. There's a lot of interesting characters you run into in the Capitol because there's a lot of themed days where I met the FSU horse mascot a few weeks back. I kissed a baby alligator. I ate.
Yes, I believe there may be photographic evidence of that baby alligator too.
No, I mean, Tallahassee's far away from a lot of other places, but it's really cool to get to see all these Tampa-based or Miami-based characters come to
real
here.
quick, Douglas, before you get back to the court, if you call a banyan a broccoli, does that count as agricultural disparagement?
Oh, no, I'm going to have to consult my lawyer.
Well, there's plenty of them to choose from apparently up there. Douglas Soul from Tallahassee on how laws are crafted and how they affect you as part of WUSF's Your Florida team. Thank you so much, Douglas. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Well, coming up, he's played bass with Lynyrd Skynyrd. He produced albums for artists including the Rolling Stones, the B-52s, and many, many more. Don Was joins us next. That's ahead of his upcoming performance in Tampa Bay. You're listening to Florida Matters, live and local. Much more to come in a moment. Stay with us.
WUSF brings you the voices of people working to fight climate change, including some young volunteers who planted a microforest.
All right, let's see. Do we need to put some more dirt in here? What do you think?
I already got a lot of that.
Oh, good.
When you hear about how people are growing new biodiversity hotspots, your perspective also grows. You can support the work of journalists in the WUSF newsroom at WUSF.org.
Funding for WUSF comes from listeners like you, and also Badawi Law, offering legal services in personal injury, immigration, and auto accidents, with offices in Tampa, Florida. Office information and practice details at badawilaw.com, or learn more on Instagram at Badawi Law. Sarasota Ballet presents the visiting Martha Graham Dance Company, and the program provides a connection with the company's 100th anniversary, February 27th through March 2nd at the FSU Center. Tickets at sarasotaballet.org.
Welcome back to Florida Matters Live and Local. I'm Matthew Petty. Well, from producing for the Rolling Stones, Iggy Pop, Ziggy Marley, to being president of jazz label Blue Note Records, to playing bass for the Grateful Dead, Bob Dylan, Don Was' creative thumbprint is on nearly every genre of music, and that's not to even mention his Emmy, his Grammy Awards, his BAFTA, and his experience in film. Well, Don and his latest group, Don Was and the Pan Detroit Ensemble, perform in Clearwater this week. And Don joins us now to talk about his musical past and his current body of work. Don, thank you so much for spending some time with us. Really appreciate it.
Hey, Matt, good to be here. Thank you, man.
So if you have questions for Don about his musical experiences, maybe there's some albums in your record collection that have his creative thumbprint on them, give us a call. Join the conversation by calling 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. You can also email FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Okay, so Don Was and the Pan Detroit Ensemble is your latest group. How did this group come together?
Well, I got booked to play a concert in Detroit, part of a jazz series that the Detroit Symphony puts on. And about 6 months ahead of it, I realized I didn't have a band and I didn't have any songs.
Fortunately, you got a pretty long Rolodex, right? So you reached out.
Well, I'll tell you something that I learned early on in the 1990s, right around 1990, early 90s. I got to work with a lot of my heroes, Bob Dylan, Willie Nelson, the Rolling Stones, Leonard Cohen, Chris Christopherson, Brian Wilson. And it gave me a really severe case of writer's block for about 5 years. And I wasn't sure how to get out of it. About 5 years down the line, I'm in the studio again with Willie, and I'm looking at him again, lamenting the fact that I can't be Willie Nelson. And then the converse hit me. But Willie Nelson can never be you. Willie Nelson didn't go to see the MC5 and the Stooges at the Grandy Ballroom in the 1960s. He didn't have George Clinton play a sock hop at his junior high school. In the music business, we tend to think that that being different is a marketing problem. But in fact, being different is your superpower as an artist, and you should emphasize that as much as possible. So 30 years down the line, when it became time to put a new band together, I went back to Detroit, called up 8 of the best musicians I know, and we got in a room together, started playing. And it just clicked. In the first 10 minutes, I knew we had something, that we all spoke this common language because we all grew up listening to the same radio stations and playing in the same bars and probably for the same audiences, So there was a chemistry from the start, and it was too good. You don't turn your back on that when you have that. It only comes along a few times in your life where you can lock in with musicians and after 10 minutes feel like you've been playing together for a decade.
Yeah.
So we started booking tours. We ended up making an album, and here we are in Florida.
So let me go back to that stumbling block as you describe it. Like you sort of felt like you were overshadowed because they were your heroes. Was there sort of that kind of hesitancy in your own writing?
Oh, I think it's just inadequacy. One night, I was with Bob Dylan in the studio. I said, "How come you can write Gates of Eden and I can't?" And he said, "Well, if it makes you feel any better, man, I remember moving the pencil over the page, but I didn't write it. It came through me." And I thought, man, what a sweet guy. He's trying to make me feel better. But then down the line, I started hearing other people say the same thing, that the great ideas come from without, and you kind of channel them, and they move through you. So I learned to keep my antennae open and not to let self-consciousness or angst or regret or fear get in the way of receiving some good signals. But to be honest with you, some people just have better receivers. They can just pick up the good stuff. I kind of think of it as like like all the great songs are floating in this creative ether up there someplace, and all the great songs are on the top. And not everybody's got tentacles long enough to get to the top, but a few do.
Yeah.
And I'm in awe of that.
If you're just joining us, we're talking with Don Was. He's a producer, a bassist. He's worked with the Rolling Stones, Willie Nelson, John Mayer, the B-52s, many, many others. You might know him from his days with his band Was Not Was.
True.
I'm in jail. Hello, Dad. I am in jail. Say hi to Mom from jail. I'm in jail. I'm gonna stay here. I like it here.
Wow, what's going on there, Don? That's got some real kind of Zappa-esque sound there.
I'm so glad you chose that as being representative of Was Not Was, because it is actually. It's a long story. Let me think of how to tighten it up. Our record company president wanted us to send cassettes every night from the sessions. He wanted to keep track of what we were doing. And this was back in the early 80s, right? And it was a drag, you know. It meant I had to stay up and run a cassette and wait till 10 o'clock in the morning, you know, to take it to FedEx and everything. So after a couple of nights, it became tiresome. So we decided to make a track that would be so repelling to him that he'd stop asking for cassettes. So we turned all the sound off, and we hit all the sequencers and drum machines just randomly, but we didn't know what we'd programmed. And I said to David, just go out there and yell something. And our sax player, Dave McMurray, went out with him. So that song was written, recorded, and mixed all at the same time. It took about 15 minutes maximum, right?
Wow.
And we sent it off to him and got up early the next day, couldn't wait to get the response. And of course he said, it's the most wonderful thing you've ever recorded. And he was right, because there was no self-consciousness. We weren't thinking. It was all about feel. It's the thing you strive for in music. And just turns out it's been like in 7 or 8 movies, and it's one of our more more successful pieces. And I'm proud of it, because there's a purity to it that I hear that I don't hear in some of our other old songs, where you can see us self-consciously trying to imitate what's popular at that moment, which is the cardinal rule you should not violate.
Did you ever go back and perform that live then? It'd be quite hard to pull off, wouldn't it?
It's funny you asked me. We played it on the bus the other night, and we wondered if we could get back to it. And I don't know. Maybe we'll try it. But, but there's a manic energy to it that
yeah,
I don't know.
It's really something. Now, if you're a fan of Don Was's work, maybe you've got some records with his production credits on them, you can give us a call. 813-755-6562, or email FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Now, you're also the president of Blue Note Records. I mean, talk about that sort of balance of being a steward of the rich jazz legacy and trying to find new artists of that genre.
Well, it's all about the same thing, really. When I first first of all, I collected Blue Note records since I was a teenager. I bought my first one in 1966 when I was 14. So I was a big fan of the label always. But once I got hired to do the gig, I thought, well, we better dig in here and figure out why the music that this label recorded 60, 70 years ago still sounds relevant today. And the pattern was that no matter what era you look at, Blue Note signed artists who had mastered the musical fundamentals of everything that came before them, but rather than turn it into a museum, they used that knowledge to create something brand new and push the threshold of music, right? Mm. So that could be Thelonious Monk in 1948, or Art Blakey and Horace Silver in the 50s, or Wayne Shorter and Herbie Hancock and Ornette Coleman in the 60s, or Robert Glasper, the year I started, when he put out Black Radio. And so that's kind of what we look for. In the end, what you're trying to do with music, whether you're a record company president or a record producer or a musician or a songwriter, the idea is to create something that will get under people's skin and make them feel something, help them make sense out of a life in a chaotic and confusing world, and at the very least, bring them some comfort for 3.5 minutes.
For sure. Now, I was just looking at some of the Florida musicians that you've collaborated with over the years. One of them sticks out. I mean, there's a lot of heroes in there, but you played bass a couple of times for Leonard Skinner.
I did.
What was that like?
It was a thrill, man, to play those songs. They're great songs, and they're actually much more sophisticated than one would think, than I thought, just knowing them from the radio. When I had to actually learn some Leonard Skinner songs, it was quite challenging. They were always, whatever edition of the band you're listening to, always great musicians, and they really have a distinct place in the pantheon of American rock and roll.
Yeah. Speaking of the pantheon of American rock and roll, you never know where you're going to find Grateful Dead fans. On our show last week, we talked to a reporter who has witnessed every Florida execution since 1989. Now, he said listening to the Dead is how he decompresses afterwards. That's probably a bit of an extreme case, but what have you learned from Grateful Dead fans and being part of that musical legacy?
Well, a couple of things, and it's really influenced how we go about things in this current band, the Pan Detroit Ensemble. First of all, the songs that they wrote they're grounded with incredible poetry, both from Robert Hunter's lyrics and Barlow's lyrics, the songs he wrote with Bobby Weir. They're just impressionistic enough that everybody has enough room to hang their own inner emotional lives on those songs. You almost become a co-writer with them on the songs, because I could tell once I started playing with Weir, who I toured with from 2018 up until last year when he got sick, I could see the faces of the people, and I could see the lines land, and I could see how much it meant to everybody. Then the audience is also really tuned in to what the musicians are playing. So what I learned from playing with Bobby was that you have to let the audience become a participant in the concert. They're not just observers. You play something, you can feel what you play register with that audience, and a vibe comes back to the stage, energy comes back to the stage, and you get a cyclical thing going of the musical conversation within the band and then with the audience. Man, you can blow the roof off a theater with that. It's a really addictive, exhilarating feeling, and you experience this kind of collective effervescence with the audience.
Wow. Is that sort of what you're going with every musical performance, though, that kind of like connection with your audience?
Well, I think you should. I didn't fully understand it. Even though I've been doing this for a long time, I didn't fully understand it till I played with Bobby. And when I experienced that happening, I understood. I can actually see like there's video up on YouTube from the first few times I played with them in front of a Grateful Dead audience, and you can see like my mind is blown from the energy exchange, and it made me play differently. There's actually we did an Eyes of the World one time at Warren Haynes' Christmas Jam. It was before we started Wolf Brothers, but I played with Bobby, and Branford Marsalis was playing. And I look at the video that someone shot from the audience, and I can remember the feeling where my fingers were moving on their own. Wow. Which is kind of what you strive for. You don't want to be thinking all the time. You don't want to be, self-consciousness is the enemy of the artist, I think. So you want to be completely in the moment and just let the notes flow. And I could see my amazement just if I look at my face in that video. And now that's the thing we aim for.
Yeah. Well, Don WUSF, we're going to have to leave the conversation there, but thank you so much for your insights. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Looking forward to playing there.
Don is a producer, bassist, president of Blue Note Records. You can catch him, Don WUSF, and the Pan Detroit Ensemble Thursday at Clearwater's Bilheimer Capitol Theatre. Coming up next, we sit down with the Tampa Black History Museum's new program director. Stay listening to Florida Matters, live and local. Much more to come in a moment.
I'm Robin Young. Margaret Atwood's Handmaid's Tale has a new life on TV, but does this dystopian novel still haunt her?
How present is Handmaid's Tale for you?
I'm Canadian. You might invade us.
Next time, Here and Now.
Join us this afternoon from 1 to 3 on WUSF 89.7.
WUSF depends on contributions from people like you. And Seitenbacher, with a new web shop. Healthy muesli, cold-pressed oils, and vegetable broth mix delivered to your door from right here in Tampa Bay. Details at Seitenbacher.com. Seitenbacher. Seitenbacher. Sarasota's West Coast Black Theater Troupe presents How I Got Over, a gospel review. Come here and be inspired by the joyful spirit of your favorite gospel music. February 18th through March 29th. Tickets at westcoastblacktheater.org.
Hey, I'm Gabriella Paul, and I report on people living paycheck to paycheck in the region.
They're firefighters, they're teachers, they're nurses, but they don't make enough money to pay the bills, and they're one paycheck away from being on the street or in some sort of substandard housing.
At WUSF, I tell your stories about the rising cost of living.
Welcome back to Florida Matters Live and Local. I'm Matthew Petty. History is one of the favorite topics of ours on our show. Today we're taking a peek at the Tampa Black History Museum. It's a partnership between the Tampa Bay History Center and the Tampa Housing Authority. Now, the museum's newest program director is Janine Qualls-Adkins. Janine works with the center and with its curator of Black history, Fred Hearns. Here is Fred back in 2024 before the museum opened.
At Tampa's first Black History Museum, people can expect a wonderful experience, education, entertainment. We hope that they'll learn a lot about Tampa's Black history, which is also Tampa history.
All right, so if you want to ask about Tampa's Black heritage, you can join the conversation now. Call 813-755-6562. You can also email FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Well, Fred and Janine are here with us now. Janine, thank you so much for coming in, and Fred, thank you as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so Janine, what is the difference between your different roles, you and Fred's roles at the History Center?
So I would say my role is more so about activating the space in this year that we are preparing to open the museum. So a lot of what I've been doing is meeting people, building relationships with the residents who live in the surrounding community, and talking through kind of, getting to know what people will want to see in the museum, talking through how we are, still collecting items for the museum, but really activating the space and orienting people and getting people comfortable, really establishing it as an anchor for the community we're in and for Black Tampa in general.
That's so interesting you use that phrase, activating the space, because that suggests to me that we're talking about something alive and not just kind of frozen in the past here.
Absolutely. We want, people to come and engage with us. As Fred stated, in the clip you heard earlier, we want entertainment. We want education. We want to provide learning experiences. We really want people to be engaged in, developing what that space and experience looks like.
For sure. So Fred, how is this kind of different from what you've been doing in the past?
Well, Tampa has never had a Black History Museum. This is the very first one. For the last 5 years, I've been working at the Tampa Bay History Center, which is down in Channelside, not too far away from the Black History Museum, about a mile away, I guess. And we have an exhibit there. That space is called Travails and Triumphs. It's a wonderful exhibit. It's a permanent exhibit. But it is not really a space that people can come and do the kinds of things that they're going to be able to do in an entire building, which is where Tampa's Black History Museum is going to be, 1213 North Central Avenue. So it's a bigger space. We're going to have fixed permanent exhibits there. We're also going to have a small space for traveling exhibits and for talks and to bring the community in. We're going to be able to do a lot more sharing Black history at the Black History Museum, in addition to Travails and Triumphs at the Tampa Bay History Center. So 2 different spaces. One will be a little larger than the other and give us a little more flexibility.
So how does it feel to see this project come to fruition? It must be pretty good.
Growing up here in Tampa, this is really a dream come true. A lot of the stories that I grew up hearing or learning about, we're going to be able to actually come alive in the museum through artifacts and talks and things that we're going to be doing there to engage the community. And that's where Janine comes in, having staff there in the space, which has not happened before. It's going to really take us to the next step and make our history something people can see as a tangible asset to Tampa.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I mean, having a standalone Black History Museum, that's a big deal, right? That kind of really says like this is a very important part of the legacy of Tampa Bay. Something, a story that probably it's overdue having its own space to kind of connect with people.
Absolutely. And I think you have a lot of descendants and folks who have been here a long time who can help tell those stories and facilitate those experiences. You have a number of families here who we are connecting with, who have stories, who have, who've made contributions, who have been leaders. And we want the museum to really be a space to honor those legacies as well.
So what sort of input are you looking for from the community?
Well, again, we're always looking to add to the collection. So artifacts, photographs, things that might be of value that tell stories that, can speak to Tampa's Black history. But also, I know for me, I am thinking about we have the fixed exhibits, and we also have the things that are going to shift and change. We have the digital components where we can bring in a lot of interactive experiences, information. So I really would love, the community to tell us what they want to see, what they want to learn, how they would like to be engaged. I really want them to come with the questions that they have so that we can fashion the space to continue to be, an asset and a support of Black history.
If you're just joining us on Florida Matters Live and Local, we're talking with Janine Qualls-Adkins, and we're also talking with Fred Hearns. He's the curator of Black History at the Tampa Bay History Center, I should say, and Janine is the newest program director for the Tampa Black History Museum. So I'm wondering, does it feel like is it a little strange, I suppose, as a curator to kind of be inviting the community in, like giving up a little bit of the control of things? Like how does that feel as a museum curator, I should say?
Well, it's quite amazing to talk to people, and some folk have some really amazing items, some personal things. For example, we have a diploma from Bethune-Cookman College. At the time when Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune was alive and the president of that college in Daytona Beach, and our first female school board member here in Hillsborough County, Doris Ross Reddick, actually gifted us her diploma with Dr. Bethune's name on it. It came from her family, rather. Mm-hmm. And so that's one of our treasured items that we're going to have, I'm pretty sure, on display. And that will help to tell a story because, students today who did not grow up during the era of segregated schools don't really know what it was like, except for us to tell them what it was like and show them some of the things from that era. Now any student can pretty much go to any university where their grades in preparation will take them. That was not the case, for example, when I was growing up. And so these artifacts, which museums depend on for us to interpret them and share the stories and make people get answers to the questions that they maybe have had for a long time. And now we actually will have a museum here locally. Many of us have traveled to other cities, visited other museums in other places. Now we can do that here in Tampa as it relates to Black history, which is American history, something everybody should know.
Mm. And of course, it's Black History Month, February being Black History Month. Now, if you've got some favorite stories from Tampa Bay's Black history and you'd like to share them, you can call 813-755-6562 or email FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Janine, are there some kind of artifacts that stand out for you as in terms of things that tell a particular story, a unique side of Tampa that people maybe aren't so aware of?
Well, I would say the building itself has been a talking piece. Right now it's a blank canvas. So being in the building, I get folks who come and they're knocking on the door or ringing the bell and they're saying, well, I heard this was a Black History Museum. Well, it is, right? And right now it's a space that you can really kind of envision. So talking about the church, having existed, or the structure being there since the 20s, being founded by Black families from the Bahamas, in the late 19th century, like that itself has been a great talking piece and a great way to invite people back into the space. They want to come. They want to continue to follow the process of the building out of the museum. So being in that historic space has been the greatest talking point.
Yeah, so what does that timeline look like in terms of building it out, permanent displays, traveling exhibitions?
Well, next summer, we hope to open the museum, Tampa's Black History Museum, to the community. We don't have a specific date at this point, but we're looking at sometime in 2027. And that gives us enough time, again, to do the outreach that we've been doing. We've had focus groups. We've had surveys that people have completed. We've got a lot of information. We have been collecting items for over a year now. We're going to continue throughout the rest of 2026.
Where are you keeping those items?
We have a large storage space at the Tampa Bay History Center.
I always wonder that with history museums. Like, there's a lot of stuff, right?
Yes.
So where do you store it all?
You know, a lot of the space is not open to the general public, but we've got thousands of items in storage. And, of course, they're temperature controlled. We take care of, these artifacts, and they have to be handled by professionals. But when they're ready to go on display, that's when people will have an opportunity to see them up close, whether they're behind glass or some other, manner. And you've been to museums before, so you can't handle these items.
No.
But
there are ways to sort of make things interactive and give people a sense of kind of being a part of it rather than just looking at something behind a display case.
Right. So our curatorial staff takes excellent care of these items. When people give us their personal items that they've had for years and years and years in their family, we can assure them that they'll be taken good care of. And not everything we're given goes on display, but we explain that to the donors at the time they make the gift.
Janine, I find it kind of cool the fact that you're still building this out, you're still kind of working on it, but there are still people kind of knocking on the door, and you're already doing the job, right? So you're already sort of like being a curator and kind of explaining what's going on and telling people this is how it's going to look.
Absolutely. And, continuing to build out our ambassador program, who are going to be volunteers that are part of the History Center, but they are contributing their time, focused on the Black History Museum and moving it forward and learning Black history content. Like, it really is an exciting time to be at this space now. And again, I think I had a kid from the building. She pulled the door and it opened, I think she shocked herself, but I got to have a conversation, or get to have conversations across generations about what this is going to mean for all of us. And that has been really rewarding for me.
Just in the last few seconds we have here, what are you most looking forward to about the opening of this?
Again, how it's going to be representative of Tampa's Black community in its entirety, and the way that we get to engage people in the dialogue about the current history being made by Black Tampa.
Indeed. Well, looking forward to seeing that for sure, and we'll have you back on to talk more about it. But we've been speaking with Janine Quayles-Adkins and Fred Hearns from the Tampa Black History Museum. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that's our show for today. Tomorrow on Florida Matters Live and Local, students at Tampa Bay schools have been walking out to protest ICE. How are school leaders reacting? You can tune in for the conversation. It's Tuesday at noon. Our executive producer is Grayson Doctor. Our producers are Amelie Horace and Quincy Walters. Our engineers are Jackson Harp and Gio Galvin. Jackson composed our theme music. Warren Buckholtz handled the video today. Subscribe to Florida Matters Live and Local wherever you get your podcasts. You can also watch on WSF's YouTube channel. I'm Matthew Petty. Thanks for listening and watching. We'll be back 12 noon tomorrow.
The war in Ukraine started almost 4 years ago. Ukrainian and international journalists have been on the front lines to document